Continuation from the previous 5, chapter Riders to the Sea, question answers, page 23. He is not didactic or moralistic. His approach to nature has in it something pagan. He is a, quote, rustic fatalist, unquote. In Riders to the Sea, Singh is concerned with the deep tragedy of the life of a poor peasant family of which he had acquired an intimate knowledge while dwelling among the Aran Islanders like one of their own. His vision of life is strongly colored by the dark fatalism that he saw among the men and women there. It almost resembles the profound fatalism of Greek tragedy. But a modern poet that he was, he could not use the devices of the Greek tragedians by bringing in gods and goddesses and making them interfere with the lives of men and crushing them with an unrelenting force. Here modern science came to his rescue. He made admirable artistic use of nature, which he revealed by modern science is, quote, red in tooth and claw, and the struggle for existence, unquote, that is eternally waged in nature by the various species. Nature, in his view, is not a kind mother as Wordsworth finds in her. He views nature, like the scientist, as a terrifying, destructive force out to crush men in the fields, factories, mines, etc. It is fate or chance that masquerades as forces of nature like the sea, the storm, droughts, floods, thunders, and so on. This is the, quote, new naturalism, unquote, an essentially modern conception that Singh has inducted into his great work of dramatic art. Singh has not represented the sea merely as a convenient stage setting for the human drama, but has endowed it with a life and personality of its own. The story of the life of the islanders is set here against the background of nature. The characters in the play are, as it were, a part of nature. They are what nature has made of them. They are essentially the children of the soil, and cut off from their environment, they have no life in them. They are primitive, elemental beings who live a life of instinct rather than of reason or intellect. Civilization has not yet entered into this primitive corner of the earth. Their occupations are simple and primitive. They fish in the sea, gather weeds, carry on agriculture, and so on. Nature here is rude, rugged, and gloomy. The somber aspects of nature, like the dark moorlands, bare, craggy hills, the howling sea with its changing moods, make up the backdrop of their drama of existence. There is a mystic relation between these toiling people and the hills, valleys, and caves in which they live, move, and have their being. They know the meaning of every mood of the sea or of sounds of the wind. Thus, nature has here completely overshadows and dominates their life. They are a part of the landscape, as it were. Page 24. Again, nature here is not merely the background, but she is herself a superhuman protagonist, making or marring the fate of the puny creatures that come into her orbit. The sea here is a living character and a symbol of destiny that is out to crush men irrespective of worth. It's a demon, even hungering for the lives of men. It has taken a heavy toll of the 8 lives of the poor peasant family of Maurya. Moria accepts the end with the calm resignation of a stoic. Quote, the sea can do no more harm to her. No man can at all be living forever, and we must be satisfied. Unquote. This is her final attitude. The sea is a setting for the grim tragedy of the fisherman. The sea is a dominant presence in the life of the poor folk. But Singh uses the sea as an archetypal symbol. The sea weaves the tragic net in which the characters are caught. The sea and humanity are mysteriously interlinked. It symbolizes inscrutable fate. In Riders to the Sea is a character, a setting, and a symbol. Question 10. Write a note on Singh's attitude to and treatment of nature in Riders to the Sea. Answer: same as the previous one, and see answer to question number 6. Question 11. Would you consider the plot of Riders to the Sea as too simple and its characterization as too sketchy to produce an impression of the play as a tragedy in the fullest sense? Answer: Riders to the Sea has been justly acclaimed as, quote, one of the greatest masterpieces of our modern tragedy, unquote. Here, within the limited compass of a one-act play, Singh has succeeded admirably in producing a tragedy which, in its tremendous intensity and tragic force, in its impression of mystery and fatalism and waste, is hardly inferior to a full-fledged tragedy of 5 acts. In the economy of plot and characterization, the dramatist has achieved a concentration which shows superb art. The plot of the play is reduced to minimum. It is slight and thin. The play deals with the incidents of a single hour taking place in the cottage of a poor peasant family. It opens in an atmosphere of mystery and suspense caused by the loss of Michael in the sea 9 days ago. No trace of the dead body has yet been discovered. We are told that a bundle of a shirt and stocking has been brought by the village priest to Kathleen, the sister of Michael. It has got to be verified. At any rate, 2 sisters keep the mother absolutely in the dark about this bundle. The bereaved mother has got several white planks and a long rope ready for the burial. Every moment she has been looking out expectantly for the arrival of the dead body. The opening situation in its pathos and hush of suspense is a fine trick of art. Page 25. Comparable to the opening scene of Shakespeare's masterpiece Hamlet. Thus, when the family is under the shadow of death, Bartley, the last surviving male member of the family, proposes to sail out to the fair across the stormy sea in order to sell a grey pony. Moria, who has been steeled by the heavy blows of fate, has a premonition that Bartley is doomed and she would fain prevent the son from crossing the sea. She has seen mystic signs already and observed the behavior of the sea. All this confirms her worst apprehension. But the inexorable fate is drawing Bartley with a force which she cannot resist. Bartley goes out to his doom. As Moria goes out to give blessing and bread to the son, she has a horrible vision and she says, quote, he is gone now. God spare us, and we will not see him again, unquote. Thus, the catastrophe is prepared for with admirable skill, and the sequel, when it comes, has but a little element of shock. It is the inevitable culmination of a chain of events. It would thus be quite wrong to say that the plot element in the play is slight and thin. a miracle of the art of plotting has been achieved by Singh. As to the characterization in the play, it is no less satisfying than the art of plot. The limit of a one-act play precludes a multiplicity of characters. Besides, full-length portraits are ruled out because the play deals with the affairs of 1 hour. The situation is packed with tragic implication and force. It is through the character of Moria that we get the full impression of the great tragedy that befalls the family. Moria is not a mere pencil sketch. She is a full-blooded character, astoundingly live and real. Repeated shocks have steeled her heart and left her disconsolate. Every sentence from her mouth breathes the infinite pathos of her situation. Tragedy has bred in her a stoic endurance of and indifference to reverses of fortune. The manner in which she keeps things ready for the burial of Michael may shock civilized sentiments, but is in keeping with her character. Her last words in the tragedy are not expressions of her heartlessness, but of, quote, deep sorrow, unquote. The calm of mind, all patience spent, is more eloquent than loud, quote, keening, unquote. In fact, the entire tragic effect of the play has been concentrated and embodied, as it were, in the person of this desolate, sorrow-stricken mother. It is particularly with an eye to her that Professor Nicol has observed, quote, the figures in the cottage, weak as they may be in the face of the physical power of the ocean, are titanic in their courage and grandeur, unquote. Moria has attained a stature equivalent to that of a grand Shakespearean hero, a King Lear on a miniature scale. Page 26. Page 26. Thus, it would not be correct to say that Riders to the Sea does not produce a tragic impression like a full-length tragedy. The genius of Singh, working with the limits of a one-act play, has achieved a masterpiece of tragedy which in its intensity, tension and impression is almost a match for a Shakespearean tragedy. Question 12. Estimate how far the tragedy in Riders to the Sea attains to universal significance, although it deals with the fortune of poor, uncultured people living under rude, primitive conditions. Question 12. Estimate how far the tragedy in Riders to the Sea attains to universal significance, although it deals with the fortune of poor, uncultured people living under rude, primitive conditions. Answer. Riders to the Sea is unique among modern tragedies and makes the nearest approach to Greek tragedies in its poetic qualities. It takes a hold on our imagination, as Professor Nicol has observed, by the, quote, the universality, the strength, the majesty of this little work, which cannot be too highly praised, unquote. Within the limited scope of a one-act play, Singh has succeeded admirably in producing a tragedy which in its spirit and tragic intensity, in its atmosphere of gloom and fatalism, in its setting of the human characters against nature's stern and relentless power, produces an impression as deep and tragic as a full-length tragedy. The theme of the tragedy is, of course, the tragic fate of a poor, primitive and uncultured peasant family that lives in the Aran Islands. Civilization has not yet entered into the lives of these primitive folk. Though formally Christian, these people are still pagan in their outlook of life. Their view of life is dark and somber. They know little of the gaiety or sunnier side of life. Life with them is a sorry business. Efforts, glories appear vain to them. Even the desire for life has been weakened in them by the repeated blows of a dark, relentless power called fate, that appears here as the cruel sea, which is a living force and like a monster is ever hungering for human life. Nature in the island is somber and bleak, with dark moorlands, rugged cliffs, windy heaths and howling seas. Maurya has lost all in the sea, her father-in-law, husband and 4 sons, and the last 2 sons who are doomed. The play opens in the atmosphere of gloom and suspense caused by the drowning of Michael in the sea 9 days ago. The tragedy has not yet been confirmed by any decisive evidence. Some remnants of a drowned man have been brought by the village priest, a shirt and a stocking. But these stand verification. Maurya, the bereaved mother, who has been steeled into endurance and indifference by successive blows of fate, is waiting for the dead body of Michael. She keeps things ready for the burial, and it is the grim irony of fate that the same are used for the funeral of Bartley, who is the last rider to the sea and whose body has been, page 27, brought by the keening men. These simple peasants have to wage a struggle with the sea in order to earn their living. Such is the tragic world that Singh has pictured in the play. It goes to the great credit of dramatic genius of Singh that out of these rather unpromising materials, he has wrought out a supreme work of tragic art. In his hands, a local tragedy has attained to a universality which moves all hearts. Maurya stands in the play not as mere peasant mother who has lost her all at the hands of the stern sea monster. In her courage, endurance and stoical calm, with all passions spent, she becomes a grand tragic figure like a Shakespearean hero or heroine. She is at once an individual and a type of heroic womanhood. Beside this element of characterization, there is the profound sense of fate underlying the tragedy, which contributes to the universal appeal. Robin Skelton writes, quote, "The islands of Riders to the Sea is Ireland, but more than Ireland, its predicament are those of the Irish peasantry, but also those of all men subject to the tyranny of forces they do not understand. Its beliefs are those of the Irish peasants, but they are also those of all people who combine superstition with Christian belief, or who are troubled by thoughts of spiritual realities beyond their ability to understand and control." Unquote. The figure of a man pitted against power of the gods is the theme of heroic tragedy. The poetic elements extend the play from local to universal significance. The imagery of the play is so organized as to refer us not to the world of Irish history and folklore, but also to the world of archetypal symbolism, the conflict of man with the sea, the giver and taker of life. Again and again the characters speak of the tides. Horse signifies power and fear. Red mare signifies strength, while grey pony signifies death. The symbols of black pig, white boards, baked bread, the new rope are all archetypal symbols which create in this Celtic drama a universal picture of man surrounded by natural elements and supernatural forces. Singh's archetypal symbols, quote, set the mind wandering from the from idea to idea, from emotion to emotion, unquote, and deepen the universal significance of the drama. Frank Bernard rightly says, quote, Riders to the Sea is a local play which is universal, unquote. Question 13. What picture of the Irish peasant life do you find in the play? Fully describe the picture of life. Answer. The picture of the Irish peasant life as presented in the Riders to the Sea is minute, vivid and faithful to truth. Indeed, one of the main interests of the tragedy lies in its, quote, local colour, unquote. Synge was a Dubliner. We are told that when he was leading in Paris, the Bohemian, page 28, life of a struggling journalist, Yeats picked him up and encouraged him to return to Ireland and live among the peasant people of the Isles of Arran, study the life of the simple primitive folk with its poetry, humour, tragedy, comedy, to prepare himself for the task of writing plays on their lives. Thus he settles down in the moorland and mountains of the extreme western coast of Ireland, soaking himself in the lives of the people, in the beauty of the local surroundings and the loveliness of the native dialect. And the result is some 4 or 5 great plays that he has written, and of these, Riders to the Sea and the Playboy of the Western World touch the height of his achievement. The scene of the play is laid in the Aran Islands, and the playwright has recaptured the atmosphere and environment of the country with insight and reproduced it with careful art. The reference to the numerous customs and manners of these primitive folk diffuses an atmosphere of reality over the whole play, so that as a realistic tragedy, it has a high place. The play is pervaded with the suggestions of the spirit of the barren stretches of the moorlands and mountains, of the ceaseless roar of the sea, and the fierce and weird spirit of the Celtic legend and folklore, its superstition, fatalism, etc. These poor and primitive people live far away from civilization. They are the children of the soil, and the course of their life has been running in the same channel for centuries, in spite of the advance of civilization in other parts of the country. Theirs is a life of instinct and emotion rather than of intellect. They are ignorant and unintelligent, but their heart is essentially sound. They are free from the vices as well as virtues of civilization, but they have a robust vitality and resilience. They receive the blows of fate without murmur and protest. They show a heroic endurance under misfortune. They are superstitious to a degree and religious in their own way. Thus, in the tragedy of Mauria's life due to the death of Michael, when the village priest assures her that, quote, the Almighty God would not leave her destitute, unquote, Kathleen and Nora have deep, sincere faith in the priest's words. Moria prays day and night for her surviving son Bartley and for the peace and rest to the souls of her dead father-in-law, husband and 4 sons. Her last words in the play are the expression of a devout and stoic soul of a Christian. But with these Christian sentiments in their hearts are blended the pagan superstitions. They believe in portents, visions and spirits. Their fatalism is deep and somber. The vision of a star up against the moon unnerves Moria and augurs ill for the journey of Bartley, who is intent on crossing the sea. Continued in the next file.